Hello, Mary Mead. So I want to review a book. The book I want to review is this one, A Magickal Journey, A Hip Guide to Modern Witchcraft by Fiona Horne. And I know this book has gotten a lot of good reviews, and I did really like it. There are some things I have an issue with, particularly the layout of the book. I don't remember exactly what this type of layout is called. But as you can see, it doesn't add any more text. It just has the same amount of text as your regular pocketbook, but you have these big frames on the side that just makes the book a lot harder to handle and makes it less comfortable to read. But of course that doesn't affect the content of the book, which is pretty good. So basically, this is your typical beginner's guide to Wicca. It's definitely a Wicca type Neo Pagan Witchcraft here. And it goes through your regular things like Sabbats, various types of spells, how to build your altar, all of these different things. And the author is a former Playboy model, and she's not your typical idea of a New Ager, which is rather refreshing. So, and it's written in I think it's 1992. So, isn't it? 1998. So there is a chapter in here on Wicca on the internet, and that's a little bit outdated. But otherwise, the information here is pretty valid. So we have spelling it out, reading this first, which is basically an introduction. Which witch is which? The hair story of witchcraft. That's one thing that annoys me in the book. The hair story. This woman is also a feminist. For the most part, she's the good kind of feminist that actually just want men and women to have equal rights. But there are a few things that annoys me. The tendency to write it hair story instead of his story. It's stupid. But yeah, it goes to a short information about basically Garrett Gardner and how modern Wicca came to be. And yeah, it seems to me to be fairly accurate from other things I have read. Witches' breeches, witches' style, and when to take your clothes off. This one is an interesting chapter because it basically goes through both basically the image that you pose outwards and how some people, me included, have a tendency to be very outwardly witchy. And this author isn't very much a fan of that. Hear about that. It's not my concern. But also how it can be empowering to basically embrace the witch stereotype. It also discusses the whole idea of working skyclad and basically when to do it, how to do it, and when to say no when you aren't comfortable, which is very important. Then you have this goes with that, and that goes with that. All you need to know to make your own spells, it's a chapter about correspondences. Basic correspondences is pretty good. Is it a bird? Is it a snake? No, it's my familiar. Magical animal partners is basically she tells the story about how she met her familiar Lulu. Here we have Lulu. That's Lulu. Lulu is adorable. And a bit about familiars in general and how not all animals you come into contact with will want to be your familiar. And we should respect that. Then you have this is the place to be and I'm in it. Magical hotspots, which is basically both about how to create a sacred space and also about sites of power in general. Then you have spell boundaries, casting circles, and making your own sacred space, just more about sacred space and general ideas about casting circles. Then you have altered states, setting up your altar, which basically goes about, well, exactly what it says in the 10. And then we have 7 days to a magical new you, a magical makeover, which is basically discusses a magical kind of retreat, where you take 7 days to work on yourself, work rituals, and I really want to do that. It seems like a fun thing to do. Having your wicked ways, spells to start you out, which is basically some pre-made spells. The Labyrinth of Love, how to find your way in and out, which discusses love spells and the do's and don'ts, and the morality of it. Witchcraft, hexing, psychic attack, and protection, which I give her credit for having a chapter about this. That if you can heal, you can also harm. And how, yeah, at sometimes curses happen. Just like, I'm not a violent person, but push me too far, and I will react with violence, and I don't see magic as any different. Only thing I really have a problem with in that chapter, she does include a couple of curses that are pretty nice and all of that. This idea that, no, all witches, she says, has this idea about karma and that whatever you send out comes back to you. All witches. First of all, not even all Wiccanish Neo Pagan witches have that idea of the threefold law. Secondly, there's so many other types of witches out there, and it's a very, very Wiccan thing, so no. But other than that, that chapter is pretty okay, and I have to say that other places, Fiona is very good at basically saying, this is how I do it. For example, she has a different setup for the typical the guardians of the corners. So she has, what was it? A cow for the snake for water, and a cow for earth, and I think it was some sort of bird for air, and then a cat for fire. And I mean, she says, this is how I want to do it. That works with her, and she advocates people to read and then make their own path. So other than that comment about all witches believe that if you cast a curse you will be punished by the universe, she's pretty good at that, but no, yeah, not all witches believe that. Moving on. Cosmic Conjurings, making your own witchy cosmetics, which is an interesting chapter and one of the few basically that you wouldn't find in most Wicca 101 books. It's basically about magical cosmetics. It's quite interesting. And it might be worth the price of admission for this book for those that already have a lot of Wicca 101 books. Then again, I sort of also have a lot of Wicca 101 books, so yeah. Let me see. Divine Dealings, getting a grip on the past, present, and future, which is divination. It doesn't go in very depth. Beds, knobs, and broomsticks, magical sex, which is interesting. This is because of sex magic. Awesome. Flying high, magical drugs, and she goes into a very deep, fairly deeply into that. It's quite an interesting chapter. You have cyber sorcery. There are a couple of spells here that can be useful to keep you safe while searching and keep you safe from internet trolls and all of that. But for the most part, this chapter is sort of outdated. Spin that wheel, the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, which discusses the Sabbats. Days of Our Lives, witchy days throughout the years, which discusses other pagan holidays. The Witches Are All Right, celebrating the life of a witch, which basically discusses various rites of passage that you might want to mark with magic. Gobbledygook, unusual words and terms. The Library, which basically it's a witchy dictionary. The Library, which is various books that she recommends. Weaving the Web, cool internet sites for witches, which is pretty outdated. and crafty contacts where to get witches' supplies, which is also, after all these years, somewhat outdated. So yeah, do I like this book? I do. I think it is a very good Wicca 101. I also enjoyed it even if I have been practicing for quite a few years. It feels very new and fresh. This woman is obviously very knowledgeable, and while I don't agree with everything she says, I think this is a pretty good starting point and also a good thing to basically just catch up on things for more advanced practitioners. So yeah, I really recommend this book. I'll give it 9 out of 10, but I really hate the layout. That is my review of Witch, A Magickal Journey, a hip guide to modern witchcraft by Fiona Horne. It's published by Thornsons. So yeah, I hope you have enjoyed that review. Have a great day, and blessed be.